Hi people, I'm just trying to keep this still because I've had some problem with the screen recently, so hopefully just very slowly move this. Um, I've been thinking a lot about Hollywood and acting and the Academy Awards in recent weeks. I watched the full Academy Awards this year, and I've just watched an interesting interview with the actor James Hong on CBS. I'm not sure who the interviewer was, but it was quite insightful. James Hong is one of the oldest living actors who's still working. I think he's 94 now. And his age is it belies his energy because he has the energy of a much younger man, vibrancy. But it was an interesting interview. And one of the things that as it came up in that interview was the question of racism and the sort of struggle he had as an Asian American actor. Um, but he sort of combines some, let's say, candid thoughts on this and on his own lived experiences with humor, and it was an engaging interview. I found it interesting. But one of the things that came up was this idea of stereotypical roles. Now, this is something that has been brought up before in the Hollywood diversity debate. This idea of diversity in film and television, and particularly what sort of roles are offered to who. There was a clip shown from the 1950s series, The New Adventures of Charlie Chan, and a young James Hong was in that. And he cited a disgraceful incident in one of the shootings in London, in which the actor J. Carroll Nash, or Nish, there's an I in there, um, he had, of course, this was the 50s. He was playing a Chinese man and he had sort of this prosthetics to change his eyes. But basically, Hong missed the line, an innocent mistake. And Nash came out with a racist diatribe against him, and he recounts it. So that's the sort of thing he had to put up with. And of course, he was a young actor at the time, so he just had to kind of put up with it. Relatively young, actually. But one thing that came up in the interview raised this was, but you were often cast in stereotypical roles, and Hong made the point that I had to do that because that's how I got work. And this actually gets into an issue that's controversial. And, I, as a white guy saying this, some people might say you can't comment on it, but I think there is a double-edged sword with this issue because, on one hand, I totally understand any actor or actress wanting to get the best opportunities and to portray as rounded, as interesting characters as possible. So I can totally appreciate that if they feel they're always typecast in a certain way, that would be frustrating. And probably, historically speaking, not even probably, definitely historically speaking, minority actors, Asian actors, African American actors were typecast more than white actors. In other words, white actors would have had more flexibility. That's probably true, and I've no doubt there was racism in Hollywood. But there is an inherent problem in this because the thing about stereotypical roles, so let's say, for example, with an Asian American, with more specifically a Chinese American, what would a stereotypical role be? An immigrant, a Chinese takeaway owner, maybe as the role Michelle Yeoh played, a laundromat boss. Those sort of roles would be perhaps seen as stereotypical, like that's a typical Chinese American. Um, And on one hand, that's like, it's quite restrictive if they're always getting those roles. But the thing is, characters as they are real people, so there are people who are the new immigrants to a country. There are people who are working in Chinese takeaways and so on. Now, if you have a story, if you have a screenplay where those people are a part of that story, then they have to be portrayed, and they have to be portrayed by Asian actors because you can't have white actors, you know, um, yellow facing, to use that crude term. And that was something that was done in the past, unnecessarily. So back in the 30s, I think I mentioned this before, The Good Earth, you had the German-born Louise Rainer playing a Chinese woman, and that was really grotesque caricatures at a time when um, Anna May Wong was active in Hollywood, so it's not like there wasn't any Asian actors. And it's good that Hollywood's moved on a lot from them. But the thing about stereotypical roles is someone has to play them. To put it plainly, someone has to play those roles. White actors can't play them, so what's the situation? I mean, I remember having this debate actually with some Asian actors in they were stage actors actually. It was in 2017 when there was a controversy around the use of yellowface at a London theatre, and I was sort of getting into this discussion on a comment thread with actually some of the actors involved, and um, I was making the point that you're saying, you know, we don't want white actors taking our roles, but you don't want to do those roles because they're stereotypical. So it's a bit, you know, it's a kind of double-edged sword in a way. You can't say we don't want white actors doing those roles, which is I get that because it would be yellow facing, but someone has to do the roles. Now, I think any actor struggles. I think acting is a difficult profession. And I watched last night an interesting discussion. It was from the Hollywood Reporter, which sounds kind of tabloidy and cheap. Actually, it's not. It's quite in depth. It was an actors' roundtable, and you had six actors. Let's see, there was Austin Butler, Brendan Fraser, um, Ki Hyo Kwan, Jeremy Pope, whose work I'm not familiar with. Of the six, he was the guy I didn't really know. Um, Colin Farrell, if I didn't already mention him, and there was someone else, Adam Sandler. Yeah, so that was quite a diverse group. You had say three or four white actors, an Asian actor, and a black actor. But they had an interesting discussion, about 15 minutes. They covered all sorts of things, and they were talking about their individual struggles. Now, Colin Farrell, white actor, you know, good-looking guy. He has star written all over him in the sense of what might be a typical Hollywood star, but he struggled after Alexander. He felt that it was, you know, that sort of uh, we can't call it a stereotypical role, but if you watch the interview, it shows Brendan Fraser, of course, struggled. He put forward claims of sexual abuse, and it's widely seen this year his win for the Whale was a comeback. So I do reject this idea that white actors never struggle. That's simply not true. But it is true that they don't necessarily face some of the same issues that minority actors might face. But when it comes to stereotypical roles, James Hong said something interesting. He said every role he has ever played, he tried to humanize the character. Now, I think that seems like a practical and good approach to these so-called stereotypical roles because if they're written in a one-dimensional way, you know, if you have a character who doesn't have an important role in the film, there's only so much you could do with that character. But there's plenty of white actors who have also had, you know, bit roles that are not important. I was watching J. Edgar the other day, and it was the acting debut of Adam Driver. He had a 1 minute scene. He was talking. He was like a witness to the Lindbergh kidnapping. That was his role in the film. Or not the Lindbergh kidnapping, another crime incident. If you've seen the film J. Edgar, now of course Adam Driver's a big actor. Um, but my point is, all actors. I don't think any actor gets anything to them on a plate. I think that's a misconception. But when we're looking at stereotypical roles, there has to be an honest debate about what exactly that involves. Because on one hand, I totally appreciate, you know, if an Asian actor feels that they're worthy of a lot more and they're constantly offered the same parts. On one hand, you know, it's their livelihood, they're getting paid for it. But on the other hand, yeah, it would get very frustrating when they feel they're not being. In fact, Ki Hyo Kwan left Hollywood. He left the acting industry for almost 20 years precisely because of the lack of roles that he was offered. Now, again, it's a great story of a comeback. Um, so I think it is good in 2023 that more diverse roles are written, right? So actors can get as many opportunities as possible. So a Chinese actor doesn't have to be the takeaway owner or the immigrant. They can be anything, you know. That's good. That's a good thing. But I think it's a bit short-sighted for, people who expect, and I'm not saying this was Jim Tong, but I think some people have this idea that stereotypical roles need to just totally vanish. The problem is, who then gives a voice to those people? Those people exist in society, so who gives them a voice? If not actors portraying that part. Anyway, that's my take on it. It's a bit of a thorny subject because it's one of those things, especially like, why am I commenting as a white guy? Because I'm a lover of film and because I think that in recent years, these sort of debates have totally interjected into the whole industry. I'm not saying they're totally unavoidable, but I hope there is a day that comes when there's just acting for acting's sake, and it's no longer about identity politics. I mean, when breakthroughs are made, that is something to celebrate. So Michelle Yeoh, of course, said that this is there will be many more to come, and I'm sure she's right. Technically, actually, she wasn't the first Asian woman to win a major acting award at the Academy. She was the first actress to win Best Actress, but way back in 1957, actually, a Japanese actress, I'll just get her name up, Miyoshi Umeki won Best Supporting Actress for Sayonara. So it's technically not true that Michelle Yeoh is the first Asian woman to win a major acting award at the Oscars. The first in that category, but the big four often is seen as Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, and I think Best Director and Best Screenplay is also pretty big. But Best Picture and Best Director rather. Um, yeah, but it's just something. It's just my thoughts on the issue as a film lover. I really did cut myself yesterday. It's coming through now. Okay, people, let me know your thoughts. But what I'm saying is, I totally get that actors want to get as many roles as possible, but I also think they know starting off they have to be realistic that, it's their livelihood. They will take what roles are offered to them. Certainly when they get to the level of James Tong or Michelle Yeoh, who are very experienced actors, naturally they will want more complex and rounded roles. But it's like anything in life, you have to work your way up. But I do think historically there has definitely been a struggle and prejudice against Asian actors. I think there's no question about that. And it's a good thing that that's changing now. But that issue about stereotypes and roles, I think that's not a black and white thing. I think it's because if you totally get rid of stereotypical roles, then those people are not being given a voice. I think it takes a good actor to say, yes, this is a simple role, but I'm going to humanize this person, which is what James Tong was alluding to. Let me know your thoughts. I'd particularly like to hear from any Asian viewers, or anyone. But I'd like diversity in my comments section as well and among my viewership. So please, anyone, feel free to comment. Let me know your thoughts.